And welcome everyone to another Smart Money Circle episode. I'm Adam Sarhan. With me today is Stephen Mullowney, who's the CEO of TRX Gold. Ticker symbol is TRX. Stephen, thank you so much for taking the time and welcome to the Smart Money Circle.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's great to be here, Adam.
So, Stephen, I always like to begin. Can you please tell us your story and how you became CEO of a gold company? It's very, I love it.
Yeah, so growing up, I don't think I would have ever dreamt about being CEO of a gold company with an asset in Tanzania and Africa. Certainly, that wasn't when I was growing up in my thought process. But here I am, and it's been a very interesting career and an interesting way of getting here. I grew up in rural Canada, probably the poorest region in Canada, and then went to school in Atlantic Canada. From there, I did my chartered accountancy. Um, After that, I moved into the private placements division of a large life insurance company in John Hancock, which is a Boston-based enterprise. So I did that for a couple of years prior to moving to Toronto, Canada, and doing investment banking for 3 to 4 years before I moved over to back into an accounting firm in Price Waterhouse. And in that role there, I didn't do any accounting, but I did a lot of advisory work in the deals practice. And in that role, I was a partner there in which I managed a lot of mining files. So I would be on the government relations side, helping governments negotiate frameworks as well as agreements, putting in place mining frameworks on the company side, helping them deal with governments and putting in the agreements. And then on the advisory side, doing mergers and acquisitions, as well as public capital raises and other things around that. And then also on the operational improvement side and consulting side, around looking at the process flow sheets and those sort of things, and turning around enterprises as well as on restructuring side. So I have a broad range of experience in the mining industry right across the world. My clients were, in Central Asia, the former Soviet Union, Russia, Japan, Europe, Africa, Southeast Asia. So I've been all over the world. So again, coming from rural Canada, never thought that I would end up being a well-traveled, international type person doing mining.
I love that.
It's been fun.
Yeah, I love that. So, how'd you become CEO?
I was advising, this is one of the clients. So obviously in professional services, you have to target clients and you have to figure out what your targets would be. On this particular company came onto our target list and I phoned them up. They seem to have a decent asset from a geological perspective. Again, I'm a chartered accountant by background, but I've learned geology to be dangerous in it, as well as metallurgy and other disciplines. I do love to learn, so I do dig into it. And it looked like it had the potential to take off and to be a company that could go into production fairly easily. So in mining, I've always taken an asset first approach, which means you have to have good geology, which means lower cost more than likely, if that's the case. And then you manage jurisdiction risk second. And that's where my expertise really was, and from my PwC days is getting in and helping manage agreements and things of that nature in foreign jurisdictions. So I got in, I advised them, and they were a little bit of a mess. So that led into the restructuring and operational turnaround sort of aspect of my career. And here I am as CEO.
Wow, I absolutely love that. We have that thing in common. We both love to learn. So you saw a target, you saw there was massive potential there, had to get cleaned up and restructured. You were able to do that job based on your
Yeah.
experience, and you stepped in and did it, and now you're doing it. Is that a good way of summarizing it?
Yeah, that's a great way of summarizing it. When I came in, we were losing $500,000 a month in a test plant. Needed to bring in a lot of talent, needed to raise money in order to do that turnaround. So that goes back to my investment banking days. So taking that into account. So we raised money, hired new management. We've done 3 expansions in my time here now, on time, on budget, utilizing local suppliers and labor, and now cash flowing the asset and going on to the next phase of really trying to grow it.
Wow. That's a perfect segment to my next question. Can you please tell us about your company and some of your competitive advantages?
Yeah, so TRX Gold, we're listed on the New York Stock Exchange American as well as the Toronto Stock Exchange, both under the ticker symbol TRX. We have 2 million ounces of measured and indicated gold resources at 1.8 grams a ton. For anybody that is unfamiliar with mining, 1.8 grams a ton is good for an open pit resource. We currently have that into production, doing around, we're putting together the budgets process right now, but I would say over 30,000 ounces next year at around $1,000 cash cost per ounce. That will then be utilized to grow the asset, both from a production basis again, as well as putting a drill bits into the ground on the exploration side. So we see a lot of growth on the exploration side, like increasing that 2 million ounces significantly over time. That would be the end goal. We just press released some new finds over the last year around our property. So that will be a lot of targets. I love the unknown and exploring and what the drill bit can bring. The 2 million ounces is in our main zone, and we're expanding that as we speak and through operational improvements this next year coming up, and then we'll look at further expansions thereafter. But yeah, right now it's all about growth in production and growth in resource base.
Well, I absolutely love that. So you've got 30,000 ounces, just they said $1,000 an ounce is the cost. So everything above
Yeah.
that go higher. Gold was just at an all-time high at 2,800. So that's a lot of
Yeah.
money.
Yeah, it is a lot of money, and we're utilizing that money right back into the ground to continually grow the asset. So
Got it.
if you look at the way we've grown the company, originally I did mention we had to do some capital raises. We haven't done a capital raise in a long time. And then started to utilize our cash flow and a bootstrap approach to expand the asset. Now, if we were to switch that sort of business plan, I think there would be really good reasons to do that. Really, the information to me would have to be different. And we would want to accelerate based on new information.
Got it. No, it makes perfect sense. So, Stephen, next question for you. Let's talk about risk management. How do you handle risk, and what are some mistakes you've seen people make with respect to risk management?
Risk management, I think the way I handle risk is I ask a lot of questions. So, typically I will have an idea of how I would like to manage risk. I'd like to take how is best way weighted risk approach to things and ask questions and receive input. So when you have a problem, risk can be opportunities as well. So what you want to do is manage that risk, ask the questions of people, and then come back and formulate a response to get people to buy in order to move things forward to manage that risk. So that's just an overarching approach that I take. I like to involve the management team in that.
I love that.
Typical risks that are in the mining industry are operational risk profiles, like any other business, recovery rates, metallurgical risk. I like to have simple mining projects. Ours are crush, grind, carbon and leach type of process. So that's pretty simple and basic from a mining perspective. When you get into other sort of risk, I think you have to be careful to make sure you get decent recovery rates out of your gold. Also, another risk is in mining and operations. You want to make sure that you have good contractors and good employees there drilling and blasting. Make sure you don't have too much dilution in your ore, and every ore body is different. So you want to make sure that you are doing that properly and constantly looking at it and constantly doing your reconciliations. And then geology as well. So mining, people see it coming out of the ground, and then there's products. We do gold, but there's mines that do all kinds of products that go into everything we use every day. It's a database business ultimately at the end of the day.
Wow.
Geology is data. It is drill core that has been assayed, that has, gold, in our case, gold content in it, as well as other items. And there's a value, and you determine what that value is, and you go, and there's a value and a cost to mine it, and you figure it out. It's a database business, and then you're constantly taking that data and reconciling back to your source data. So it is, no different than a lot of businesses, except for I don't need to worry about sales and marketing as much. I'm a price taker. So usually whatever I can produce, I can sell, but the price I'm going to take it at is determined by the market.
Got it. No, that makes perfect sense. I love that gold is a database business. Years ago, I used to work for the late T. Boone Pickens, and he was a big geologist as well, but he was more in oil. And he had a great line that he said something along those lines where it's just the numbers. So once you understand the numbers, everything else makes sense. So I love that you're taking that approach to it.
Well, look, ultimately, it's a block that has a value to it in your
Right.
geological database. And it
Right.
costs so much to get to your block, and it costs so much to process that block. That's what it is. And
Yep.
then in mining, it costs so much to store what's left over from that
Right.
block
Right.
at the end of the day. So that's what mining is. No different than oil and gas.
I love it.
Costs
I
to
absolutely
get
love
at
it.
it. You know what the product is.
So next question for you, Stephen. Let us know some timeless advice that you'd like to share with the audience, please.
Timeless advice. So you're getting into a question that is, I'll step outside of business versus time, what I enjoy. I enjoy, you and I discussed, you just mentioned, is learning,
Yeah.
constantly learning and constantly being challenged and constantly challenging others. So I think, I view learning and constantly be not thinking that you know everything and seeking advice and learning yourself to make decisions. I think that's a prudent timeless advice. But in order to do that, you have to have curiosity. And people around you have to have curiosity in order to problem solve, in order to learn. And you should be constantly learning.
Absolutely love it. I think the curiosity, the learning, we were just talking about that. I said before we started recording, I was like, I know I don't know. So I've got one job, and that's to learn. It's the whole point of the show. All right,
Yeah.
next question for you. Timeless mistakes you've made or you see other people make, and how do you avoid them?
Yeah. So look, mistakes are going to be made. Um, and the key is not making the mistakes. It's having risk management to make sure you don't make big mistakes that cost you companies and things of that nature. So that's what I would say is what you want to try to avoid is, and that's why you have risk management. But if you don't take any risk, you don't make any money either. So
Right.
you have to balance those sort of competing factors. What I tell people, it's not the fact that you made a mistake, it's how you manage the mistake, and how you get back up from the mistake. So one of the things in this world, and I've been all over this world, is we're lucky we live in North America where we're encouraged to make mistakes and get back up from mistakes. There
Yep.
are other parts in the world that are very difficult to get up from making mistakes, but it's trying to get in doing business in those parts of the world is trying to get them to focus on the fact that you're not going to be too upset at mistakes in from their cultural perspective, and that you're going to encourage them to get back up and handle those mistakes and to move forward. Ultimately, you can't move forward, you can't take on increased risk and things of that nature unless you make mistakes. So the advice I give to people is continue to make mistakes, learn from them, and then make better decisions.
Wow, I think that's absolutely brilliant. I work with some people too, and different cultures and all that fun stuff. And you're right, it's embedded in their psyche that hey, making a mistake, it's almost like sacrilegious. It's like they're going to hell, or it's the worst case scenario. But our mentality is the exact opposite. We encourage it because we know in order to succeed, you got to fail and fail small, and that's a secret to winning.
Look at my
Absolutely.
kids' hockey team on the weekend. We're in the finals and they lost a close game in the finals. And of course,
Hmm.
we could all get upset about that. But as a parent, and they're 10-year-olds, I look at that and say, you know what? That's great because they can't learn to win unless they lose.
Right, right. No, I love that. All right, beautiful. Let's talk about leadership. What makes a great leader, and what are some lessons you've learned about leadership that you'd like to share with the audience?
Again, I'm constantly learning on how to be a better leader. And thus you're constantly adjusting to become a better leader. What is encouraging people to be proactive and encouraging people to ask questions and encouraging people to come forward with value added ideas. So many times I will have a decision in mind that I will change based on new inputs that people bring forward. And I want to encourage that input to be brought forward. And then ultimately, it's allowing people to do their jobs and not being a micromanager. I believe if you are a micromanager, there's sometimes you do need to be a micromanager, particularly in underperforming people. But you shouldn't be a micromanager. You should let people do their jobs, have the autonomy to do their jobs, and trust that they're going to do a good job.
Got it. No, it makes perfect sense. How about adversity? How do you handle adversity, and what are some obstacles you had to overcome along the way?
Adversity, yeah. Look, the world's a very competitive place. So there's always someone coming up behind you that would like to have your job. That's not necessarily a bad thing because it keeps you on your toes. So the key to adversity is not getting too frustrated. Adversity usually happens when there's mistakes. And it's all in how you rebound and handle those mistakes and deal with that adversity, move forward. That is the key to it. I would say, how do I handle adversity? A lot of times I go for a walk to try to figure it out.
I love it. I
Try to
absolutely love it.
or sleep at night, or like
Right.
don't react too quickly, is what I would say. And have had to learn that over time, right? To just
That is so
pause
powerful.
and then move forward afterwards. I would say in my younger years, I wasn't as good at doing that. The world not going to end in a couple minutes. That's what you
Right.
got to understand, right?
That is so powerful. I absolutely love that. So yeah, that pause between the event that occurs that is not in line with your expectations, assuming it's below it's something bad, so to speak. You're assigning that badness to it, but it's just an event. And then you pause, remove the emotions from the equation, reflect on it objectively, if I understand you properly. And then once you formulated your response, then you could approach it in a calm, cool, collected, rational fashion instead of that emotional trigger, unthought,
Yes. Yeah.
thinking.
Yeah. And I would say I was in the past a little bit too emotional.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
All right, beautiful.
Well, you lose your hair turns gray, you
Know
get
it.
some experience and realize the world's not going to end.
Right. All right, beautiful. Final question for you. What's the best piece of advice you'd like to give the audience or your 30-year-old self?
To be curious and not be afraid to make mistakes. That's ultimately, and continue to learn. It's as simple as that. I think curiosity allows you to get out in the world, to experience new things, to meet new people, and ultimately to get new ideas and make better decisions.
Love it.
If you're not
Absolutely.
curious, then you will never do it.
Yeah. It's so powerful.
I like going in when I travel to these random spots. I've had, noodle soup on the streets of Shanghai on the sidewalks. I've had shawarmas in Istanbul. A lot of it's food related, but I like to get it out there and get into uncomfortable places.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Someone told me the other day, he goes, don't look for the path of least resistance. In order to grow, you got to look for the path of most resistance. That's how you get strong. He was a trainer. He's talking about muscles and lifting weights and all that stuff. Love
Yeah,
it.
yeah.
Beautiful. Stay curious and learn. Well, Stephen, thank you so much for coming on the show. Investors can learn more by going to your website, which I'll have in the description. And that's tangoldcorp.com. Is that correct?
Now, we changed the name a couple of years ago, trxgold.com.
trxgold.com. Beautiful. Thank you for letting me know. I'll make sure the correct link is in the description.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, Adam.
Have a good soon. This was great.